said bilateral ties with the Maldives. The second on point is about how EC is taking the SIR exercise national. In the third on point, we look at how Prime Minister Modi has become the second longest serving Indian PM, overtaking Indira Gandhi. And now, let's take a quick look at the headlines. It was my mistake to avoid caste census. Leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi says at AICC's OBC event. India successfully test fires drone launch precision guided missile in Andhra Pradesh. Rajnath congratulates DRDO. All party meeting leads to consensus. Government allots time for discussion on Operation Sindoor. One soldier killed, 2 injured in landmine blast near LOC in J&K's Punch. UK FTA will help India. We need more such pacts with other countries, says RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra. Rape murder convict Govind Chami transferred to high security Villur prison in Thrissur, nabbed hours within escape from Kannur jail. Big crackdown on obscene content. Government blocks 26 applications including Ulu, All Balaji. Major OTT purge underway. First Kolhapuris, now Punjabi Juttis. Prada sparks fresh controversy over its new antiquated leather pumps. The luxury brand under the fire after being accused of copying designs of traditional Indian footwear. Pakistan, Bangladesh agree on visa-free entry of officials. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in the Maldives with an objective of reset in bilateral ties on his 2-day visit to the island nation. Significantly, Prime Minister Modi was accorded a red carpet welcome on Friday with Maldivian President Mohamed Muizzu receiving him at the airport. President Muizzu and Prime Minister Modi held bilateral talks on Friday. Clearly, the two countries have again come closer to each other to rejuvenate strained bilateral ties. Prime Minister Modi and President Muizzu met at Republic Square for bilateral talks. This is Modi's third official visit to the Maldives as Prime Minister and the first by any foreign head of government to be hosted by President Muizzu, who assumed office in November 2023. Addressing the media, Prime Minister Modi said that India-Maldives ties are old as the ocean, and New Delhi has been the first responder whenever Male has required it.
हमारे संबंधों की जड़ें इतिहास से भी पुरानी है और समुद्र जितनी गहरी है। आज जारी किया गया डाक टिकट, जिसमें दोनों देशों की पारंपरिक नौकाएं हैं, दर्शाता है कि हम केवल पड़ोसी नहीं हैं, सहयात्री भी हैं। फ्रेंड्स, भारत मालदीव का सबसे करीबी पड़ोसी है। मालदीव भारत की नेबरहुड फर्स्ट पॉलिसी और महासागर विजन दोनों में एक अहम स्थान रखता है। भारत को मालदीव का सबसे भरोसेमंद मित्र होने पर भी गर्व है। आपदा हो या महामारी, भारत हमेशा फर्स्ट रिस्पॉन्डर बनकर साथ खड़ा रहा है। एसेंशियल कमोडिटीज उपलब्ध कराने की बात हो या कोविड के बाद अर्थव्यवस्था को संभालना, भारत ने हमेशा साथ मिलकर काम किया है। फॉर अस इट इज ऑलवेज फ्रेंडशिप फर्स्ट। फ्रेंड, पिछले साल अक्टूबर में राष्ट्रपति जी की भारत यात्रा के दौरान हमने व्यापक आर्थिक और समुद्री सुरक्षा साझेदारी का विजन साझा किया था। अब यह रियलिटी बन रहा है और उसी का परिणाम है कि हमारे संबंध नई ऊंचाइयों को छू रहे हैं। कई सारी परियोजनाओं का लोकार्पण संभव हुआ है। भारत के सहयोग से बनाए गए 4,000 सोशल हाउसिंग यूनिट्स अब मालदीव में कई परिवारों के लिए नई शुरुआत बनेंगे।
President Muizzu said that the Maldives will extend its full support for India as the host of COP33. Once complete, Malay connectivity project will be lasting symbol of enduring partnership between India and Maldives, said Muizzu.
Tomorrow, His Excellency will join me in the 60th Independence Day celebrations of the Maldives. Today, we have jointly released a commemorative stamp to mark the 60th anniversary of establishment of formal diplomatic relations between the Maldives and India. This afternoon, Prime Minister Modi and I had extensive discussions. We reflected on the successes of our shared development journey, and we charted a clear path for future cooperation. Expanding our cooperation, Prime Minister Modi and I had the honor of witnessing the extent of 4 MOUs and 3 agreements on several key areas. Among these include a line of credit agreement of $565 million. This LOC will be utilized for priority projects of my government across key sectors including defense, sports, healthcare, education, and housing. I'm also pleased to announce the initiation of negotiations for a free trade agreement between India and the Maldives. This landmark initiative marks a significant step forward in strengthening our economic partnership. We appreciate the pivotal role played by India in supporting the Maldives to manage economic and liquidity challenges.
Now, what are the key takeaways? 1. Extension of rupees 4,850 crore line of credit to Maldives. 4,850 crores. Ferry service between Indian ports and Maldivian ports. Reduction of annual debt repayment obligation of Maldives on GOI funded LOCs. Launch of India-Maldives Free Trade Agreement negotiations. Commemorative stamp on 60th anniversary of India-Maldives ties. Handing over of 3,300 social housing units under India's buyer's credit facilities. Inauguration of roads and drainage system projects in Addu city. Inauguration of 6 high-impact community development projects in Maldives. Handing over of 72 vehicles and other equipments. And then the Prime Minister was received very warmly by the Indian diaspora. Chants of Vande Mataram and Bharat Mata Ki Jai were heard as Prime Minister arrived. He received a warm welcome from the Indian diaspora. Prime Minister Modi formally launched a ferry service that connects the Indian port of Tuticorin and Cochin ports with Kulkarni and Malé ports in Maldives. On Saturday, Prime Minister Modi will attend celebration of Maldives' 60th anniversary of independence from Britain. Relations between two countries soured soon after Muizzu took office with a pledge to end Maldives' India First policy and upgraded ties with China. New Delhi, however, regained its influence as it helped to prevent the 7.5 billion Maldives economy from defaulting on its debt. So what is the strategic importance of the Maldives for New Delhi 1? And how did Prime Minister Modi reset ties with Mali? How is India helping boost infrastructure in Maldives? And how has India countered China's influence on Maldives? These are the 4 questions, and on this I am joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri, former Indian diplomat, Ambassador Jayant Dasgupta, former Indian diplomat, Dr. Umu Salma Bawa, Professor, Center for International Studies, School of International Relations, and Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni. Thank you all of you for joining me. But Madam, straight away I'll come to Ambassador Sikri first. Madam, my question remains fourfold. So the first question goes to you. What is the strategic importance of Maldives for New Delhi?
Well, Maldives is India's one of the most strategic neighbors of India, because the Maldives, the word itself, means Sanskrit origin, means a garland of islands. Now they're very small country, very small population, but huge maritime strategic significance in terms of their exclusive economic zone, in terms of their positioning in the Indian Ocean region, and as a part of India's own maritime security. Maldives is very much a shared part of this. Now, we do know that President Muizzu had campaigned on an India out policy, and immediately after he became president, there was, some of his ministers made some totally unacceptable remarks against our leadership, and the reaction to that illustrated very much the strategic significance of both Maldives and India for each other. On the Indian side, the Indian tourists said, why should we go to Maldives? We're going to cancel all our visits. On the Maldives side, the people themselves said, the tourism association, the tour operator, they said, look, we need India. We cannot have a situation for the survival of Maldives without a good relationship with India. So this mutuality of strategic interests made both India and Maldives recalibrate their relationship. It was a great success for India's neighborhood first foreign policy that, from a very difficult moment at the start of President Muizzu's presidency, we now have a situation where our Prime Minister is the first foreign head of state or government to be invited for the Independence Day celebrations, the 60th one tomorrow, also the 60th anniversary of bilateral relations. And then look at the outcome of the visit. This is so significant because the kind of the wide range of issues covered, you mentioned already the infrastructure, the payments, the fintech, that, now if you're going to Maldives, you can pay, there's a currency swap agreement extending to $400 million, and you can pay another currency. Very valuable for both sides, very pragmatic. The high community impact projects are very good indeed.
Okay, Ambassador Jayant Dasgupta, how has this reset happened? Is there a story we have missed? Because if we go by the narratives published in papers, the relationship was very bitter. The welcome he has received and the pictures that have come, it's very warm.
I think there are 3 or 4 issues which really enabled us to forge a closer relationship with the Muizzu government. Before that, of course, India was very close with the earlier government of the Maldives Democratic Party, MDP. Now, in this case, what happened was President Muizzu first went to Turkey in December 23, then he went to China in January 24, and all previous presidents of Maldives have first visited India. Then in April 2024, he had a massive victory. His party had a massive victory in parliament. So that consolidated their hold on power. But at the same time, what happened on the Indian front was that despite a lot of provocative statements, including the one Ambassador Sikri mentioned in January 2024 about bad-mouthing and virtually bordering on abuse of our leadership, India maintained a very, very calm posture and restraint. India did not, for instance, stop the flow of funds, the lines of credit which were already there, and then 3 treasury bills amounting to $150 million that, India rolled over. And then there was another thing, there was a currency swap of about $750 million which also took place. And India continued to help Maldives in building up its infrastructure, its social sector, and notably the health infrastructure, for instance, has received, and housing have received a lot of funds. The last point of friction was the stationing of 76 personnel from the Indian Air Force and military. And President Muizzu's election was on this India Out program, and the first step was to get rid of these Indian Army personnel. So India withdrew them, and they were substituted by people from the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. So all these helped, but overall, if I may put it, it was the restraint, the calmness shown by India, and the helping hand, which was not tom-tommed about. It was extended all the time in a very, very substantive way. And that is what I think tilted the balance in India's favor. And President Muizzu realized that, he had, of course, to cater to his domestic constituency, but getting closer to China was not perhaps in the overall, getting closer to China at the cost of India was not perhaps in his national interest. That is what I think has dawned on the administration of Maldives, and that is what has led to this. One last point I wanted to mention, India is developing a port in, amongst many other things, in the Maldives, and there was a Chinese agriculture station, Chinese funded, and India had certain reservations about that. That has also been shifted away, or it has been stopped by the Maldivian government at the behest of India. So there are various things which have taken place, and all of these have led to the reset. And in this, I think the Indian government has shown remarkable restraint, calmness, diplomacy, and farsightedness.
Okay. General Kulkarni, in 1980s, during Rajiv Gandhi's tenure, we could organize Operation Cactus, and it was successful. But from the context of military, how does this reset helps us strategically?
Karthike, thank you. Besides what both the ambassadors have stated, it has a tremendous strategic value. Firstly, because of the navigation. And until unless these days, if you do not have the maritime security, it isn't very easy to function, especially with the kind of inroads that the Chinese have made. After all, it's a total 298 square kilometers is what Maldives is, but spread over 90,000 square kilometers of sea. And that's something very, it's almost like a toll gate between the Strait of Hormuz, the Gulf of Aden, the Strait of Malacca, distance about 750 kilometers, equidistant to the Strait from Sri Lanka and India, and on the navigational route. And definitely, we have I would say, a very old historical linkages with Maldives, going dating back almost as old as the island is, 2,500-year-old, that the people in habitation and everything has started over there. Of course, Deng He had influence around 1472 or something like that, when he would enroll, and they would almost be calling it Molai or something like that. But notwithstanding that, the Chinese influence, but the Chinese influence doesn't come so easy. The Maldivians have realized that they almost pay $100 million every year as annual debt back to China. And that's a huge amount of the GDP. And imagine the tourism that we give. Almost entire 25% of the GDP comes from the Indian tourism. All this makes Maldives and first, disaster management. In disaster management, what is it now that India has done for them? Be it in pandemic, be it in water crisis, be it during tsunami, every time it is the Indians who come first to their rescue. Notwithstanding, you found that the government, rightly brought out by both the ambassadors, that kind of a feeling between, and you know how China is, partly string of pearls, and slowly and suddenly the kind of diplomacy that they do, Maldivians have realized, and Maldivians, all said and done, wouldn't find themselves comfortable dealing with the Chinese. Let me tell you, not because of the skin color I'm talking about, but even otherwise. Chinese are a very, very difficult customer to handle. They're not easy. And they have a hidden agenda on everything. And sooner the Maldivians realize it's so much better. That's
I think you are describing you're describing Chinese influence like fast food. You know it's bad for your health, but you still can't get away. You know, despite this general, you know, you have Chinese, you know, dabbling in cyber infrastructure in Bangladesh. You have China in Myanmar. You have China in Gwadar in Pakistan. Despite the fact, you know, that it's like alcohol, it'll damage your liver, but you still allow them to be billions of dollars from Gwadar to Anbantota. Dr. Baba, my question to you is, how do we define Chinese influence in Maldives? What is the Chinese influence?
Yeah, hello. I think, I mean, you have to put it in the larger geopolitical context, right? I mean, the shifts which are happening around the world means that any opportunity which opens up for China is a point of entry. And as the panelists have also correctly pointed out, look at the location of Maldives in the Indian Ocean. The many located islands point to gateways of access and opportunity for anybody who is able to make strong, powerful economic, political relation. And China's calling card has always been that we will offer to develop and build for you whatever you want without the questions asked, but with access available to us. So I think what we have seen in this historic visit, and I think one has to recognize the context and the scale at which the relationships went down a year and a half earlier. And today where we are, where Prime Minister Modi is in the chief guest in tomorrow's function, it talks of the power of diplomacy and quiet negotiations behind the scene to get it from back to where we were, but scaling up multiple times. And that is the power of diplomacy and engagement that we have seen. And effectively to curtail and check and put a restraint on China's attempts to rewrite the strategic equation that Maldives and India has. And I think it speaks to the volumes about the work which has gone on, because otherwise we would not have seen this kind of reset in the relationship. So I think it's a big success for Indian diplomacy and all the institutions which worked, be it at the security side, be it on the civil development side. Because what we have shown, and if you look at the takeaways which are coming, it points to building up politically first, but look at the resource development, line of credit, rewriting all of the, and the new rules of engagement, which is again about what India has said, India's neighborhood first policy, but also making, I think, Maldives recognize that your first neighbor, as you said, the first responder is India, not just in terms of crisis, but it is your first neighbor with whom the most oldest relationship exists. And I think that is what has been underlined today.
Ambassador Sikri, Maldives has indeed done a balancing act, but it does not take away the fact that the Chinese influence remains there. If it is important for us, as General Kulkarni says, it is also important for China to encircle us. I don't think that influence is going anywhere, ma'am.
No, the Chinese efforts are not going anywhere. They are going to continue their efforts. They are going to continue to try and set up newer and newer groups. We saw them holding a meeting in Kunming recently of China, Pakistan and Bangladesh. So they're going to continue all that. But it is for Indian diplomacy and Indian pragmatic delivery on the ground that we're going to win the people of our neighborhood. Because China, we must remember, is not a South Asian country. They are north of the Himalayas. Their presence in South Asia is a direct interference and is very often aimed against India. But they continue regardless, and but Maldives, the success of Indian diplomacy in Maldives is one example which shows that if you establish the mutual beneficiality of the interest, that what Maldives is getting from India, they cannot get from China. The agreement on supply of essential commodities to Maldives from India. This was mentioned by President himself. China at one time told Maldives, we will send you water. You're getting water from India, we'll send you. They even sent some shiploads of water, saying this is from Tibet. But of course, it's unsustainable. It stopped within a very few so these things that India can supply, the UPI, the payment of the UPI, the rescheduling of the debt payments, Maldives is going to have a 40% decline in the annual debt repayment to India from $51 million to $29 million. Big thing. So we have found the right tone and aspects to talk to Maldives about, and the mutuality of the benefit and the trust has been established.
Thank you. I've really run short of time. Maybe, we could have gone deeper into the discussion, but I think that this great reset rebalances the Chinese influence in Maldives. So this was on point one. In the second on point, we look at how the EC has taken the SIR exercise national. After a short break.
एसोसिएट स्पॉन्सर एंकर टूथपेस्ट, नए जमाने की नई सुरक्षा।
खूबसूरत सी तुम कोई चिंता करो, पीछे भरोसा खड़ा है तुम्हारे, तुम नया कल बनाते रहो। जब कोई